Morning student. V- Very good morning students. Today I am going to deliver my talk on microencapsulation. This is the agenda of my today's presentation, wherein I am going to cover these points: introduction to the microencapsulation, fundamental consideration, reason for the encapsulation, techniques of manufacturing microcapsule, then application. Introduction. Microencapsulation is a well established process of enveloping or surrounding one substances into another substance, which gives capsules having range from less than 1 micron to several hundred micron in size. One of the highly efficient method is microencapsulation. The encapsulation efficiency of microcapsules, microparticles or microspheres rely upon various factors like solubility of polymer in solvent, then concentration of polymer, then solubility of organic solvent in water, rate of solvent removal, etc. These substances can be encapsulated in such a way that the core material be confined within the capsule shell, that is your coating material, for particular interval of time. So this technique has been used in different fields apart from the pharmaceutical even, like agriculture, textile, food, printing and defense even. So in case of defense sector, this technique has introduced the self-healing composites or chemical decontaminating fabrics. But now today we're going to discuss the importance of microcapsulation technique there in the pharmaceutical field particularly. So what actually the microencapsulation is? It is a process by which the very tiny droplets or particles of liquid or solid material are surrounded or coated with a continuous film of polymeric material. So the product obtained by this process is called as particles, or you can say either a microcapsules. So the particles, whatever it is obtained by means of microcapsulation technique, it's having the diameter between 3 to 800 micrometer. These particle, which known as microparticles or microcapsules or microspheres, you can say. So these particles larger than 1000 micrometer, so then that particle is called as microparticles. This is the simple depiction of your microencapsulation process, wherein you could able to see we have to prepare the aqueous solution as well as the organic solution, that is aqueous phase and organic phase. Drop wise we have to drop down our aqueous solution which containing the drug there in the organic phase, wherein the polymer solution are there which has been made. Okay, so with the help of ultrasonic atomizer and ultrasonic generator, the droplets are in the form of the drug which occupy the sphericity, that droplets are dropped down there in the collection bath. Okay, so this is a process or technique by which the thin coating can be applied reproducibly to the small particles of solids, droplet of liquid, or you can say the dispersion, so thus forming the microcapsule. So these ranges of the particle uh, from several 10 to 5000 micrometer in size even. So microcapsules are often described by other terms as well, as coated granules, pellets or seeds, microspherules and spansules even. When we make the particle resolve, then we're going to see the polymer membrane, which is of in red color. It is of your outer membrane, and the green color imparts your inner core, that is your core material, you can say, that is aqueous core containing the drug molecule. So with this fashion the microencapsulations technique it has been recognized. These are the fundamental some consideration related with the formation of microcapsule. So basically the microcapsule which having the two main component, one is your core material which is there in your inside, you have to embed it, and next one is your core, you can say, in other word you can say the wall or shell material even. So that is nothing but your outer membrane, and core material there in the inner membrane. So core material, these material to be coated, the core material is nothing but the material to be coated. It may be your liquid or solid, or you can say the gas. Liquid core may be dissolved or dispersed material. So the composition of core material basically which consists of drug or active constituents, you can say, then different additives like diluents and many more, and stabilizer too. Next is your coating material. It is an inert substance which coats on core with the desired thickness, which having the composition inert, polymer, then plasticizer, then coloring agent, resin, waxes and lipids, then release rate enhances or retardants. Some example of the coating materials are, it may be your water soluble resin, may be your insoluble resins too, then waxes, lipids and enteric resin. So we'll going to see the example of that respective class. Water soluble resin, which having the example gelatin you can use as a coating material, then gum arabic, starch, polyvinyl pyrrolidone, then CMC, then MC, then arabinogalactone, then PVA, that is your polyvinyl alcohol. Water insoluble resin, which consist which having the example ethyl cellulose, that is EC, polyethylene, then polymethacrylate, polyamides, that is nylon, cellulose nitrate and silicone. Third one is your waxes and lipids, which consist of paraffin, carnauba wax, then beeswax, stearic acid, stearyl alcohol, glyceryl stearates, and last is your enteric resin, which consists of shellac, then cap, that is your cellulose acetate phthalate and zine. So these are nothing but the list of coating material that you can avail this kind of material for the preparation of your outer shell or your outer membrane. What actually the role of polymer there in the formation of your microcapsule? The polymers are substance of high molecular weight made up of repeating different types of monomers unit. Okay, so polymer molecules may be your linear or branched, and separate linear or branch chains may be joined by the cross links. Next, it is used widely in the pharmaceutical system as adjuvant, that is your excipient, it is pharmaceutical aid, that is then coating material and a component of control and site specific drug delivery system. These are some type of core material, coating material and vehicle which has deliberately used there in the preparation of microencapsulation. So core material, maybe when we talk regarding the physical nature, then core material may be your solid, may be your liquid. As far as your coating material is concerned, it may be your polymer, waxes, resin, protein, polysaccharide. Just we had seen in last slide the different example of the coating material which is used for the preparation of your outer membrane of your microcapsule. Then vehicle may be your aqueous and non-aqueous. These are some example I have cited here of the core material which is of your API, that is active pharmaceutical ingredient. So first of all, the first case is your aspirin. Characteristic property of that aspirin, it is slightly water soluble solid powder. Purpose of the encapsulation is your taste masking, maybe your sustained release dosage form for the reduction of your gastric irritation and separation of different incompatibilities. Then final product form may be your tablet or capsule. Second example I have cited here is your vitamin A, that is vitamin A palmitate, that is non-volatile liquid in the characteristic, but as far as reason of the encapsulation is concerned with the vitamin A, it has been manufactured in the form of microcapsule because of stabilization to the oxidation, and final product of these vitamin A palmitate is available there in the market in the form of dry powder. And last is your isosorbide dinitrate. So it is basically the water soluble solid. Purpose for the encapsulation were restricted for the sustained release, and the final product of these isosorbide dinitrate, it is available there in the market, is capsule. These are the few advantages I have cited here. Why microencapsulation are beneficial and how rather. So the very first advantage of the microencapsulation is to increase the bioavailability, to alter the drug release, to improve the patient compliances, then to produce a targeted drug delivery, to reduce the reactivity of the core in relation to the outside environment, then to decrease the evaporation rate of the core material, and at last to convert the liquid to solid form and to mask the core test. Apart from these advantages, there are the many advantages are there where the rationale of microencapsulation serves is a best suitable drug delivery. There are the some reasons I have cited here why one can go for the encapsulation. So reason for the microencapsulation is to protect the drug material from the environmental condition, that is environmental condition, then convert the liquid to solid conversion as far as your dry solid system is concerned, then a reduction there in the gastric gradation, then for odor masking, separation of incompatibility, sustained release of medicament, test masking, to protect the immediate environment of the microcapsule from the active component. So these are nothing but the few reasons I have cited here why one can go for the encapsulation. Then to control the rate at which it leaves the microcapsules, as to control release of active component for the delayed, that is timed release, or long term, that is your sustained release dosage form. The problem may be as simple as masking the taste or odor of the core, to increase the bioavailability, to produce the targeted drug delivery, and obviously we have seen that it also overcome the gastric irritation and extension of the duration of activity for an equal level of active agent. Techniques to manufacture the microcapsules. These are the depends upon the different types of physical and chemical properties of the material to be encapsulated. So the stability and the biological activity of the drug should not be affected. Yield and drug encapsulation efficiency should be high. Microsphere quality and drug release profile should be reproducible within specified limits. So microspheres should not exhibit aggregation or adherence. Then process should be usable at an industrial scale. And last is your the residual level of organic solvent should be lower than the limit values. These are the different types of methods by which we can formulate our microencapsulation. Basically, this microencapsulation technique which having the three main part or type, you can say, that is physical and physico-mechanical, on the basis of physico-chemical, and last is your chemical. So these are nothing but the mechanism by which one can formulate the microencapsulation. The very first mechanism, that is the microencapsulation technique, which has shows its effect with the mechanism of physical and physico-mechanical mechanism are listed therein. So first method under the category of physical and physico-mechanical mechanism is air suspension, centrifugal extrusion, pan coating, spray drying, co-current method, then counter current method, mixed flow, and vibrational nozzle. So co-current, counter current, mixed flow, vibrational nozzle are the sub methods which is there under the spray drying technique. Then next method which has specially emphasized for the formulation of microencapsulation by means of physicochemical mechanism. The very first method under this category is uh, ionotropic gelation technique, and second one is your co-servation method. Then third category, or the you can say the third category of some methods which are listed here, which perform its role better for the formulation of encapsulation by means of chemical mechanism. These methods are solvent evaporation, polymerization, interfacial polymer, in situ polymerization, and matrix polymer. So we'll discuss in detail one by one. Very first method which are really been formulate the encapsulation on the basis of physico or physico-mechanical method or mechanism. The very first method is your air suspension coating. So the air suspension coating, this method was invented by a very eminent professor, that is Dale E. Worcester. So that technique has also been recognized by his name, that is Worcester process. Basically this Worcester process consists of the dispersing of solid particulate core material in a supporting air stream and the spray coating of the air suspended particles. The equipment ranging in the capacity from 1 pound to 990 pounds micron submicron particles can be effectively encapsulated by this air suspension technique. This technique is also called as fluidized bed particle. The disadvantage for this method is agglomeration of the particles to some larger size is normally achieved. So we'll have to think about while going to manufacture or formulate our microencapsulation by means of these fluidized bed particle or these air suspension technique. So agglomeration is the main hurdle where we have to think on, which will not going to form the agglomeration. With that point we have to keep in our mind. The processing variable for the efficient effective encapsulation by air suspension techniques are density, surface area, melting point, solubility, friability, volatility, crystallinity, and flowability of the core or the core material. Then coating material concentration or melting point if not a solution. We'll have to focus on this parameter basically. Then coating material application rate we'll have to think on. Then volume of air required to support and fluidizes the core material, and amount of coating material which is required, and inlet and outlet of operating temperature. So these are the process variable we'll have to think for the efficient and effective encapsulation. So this is your simple Worcester process which has been depicted there in the figure. So what actually it is? So in this case the separation of particles prior to the encapsulation is operated in a gas stream, that is we are using here air in general. Then once the fluidization is optimum, that is individual repartition of the particles takes place, then molten coating material is applied in very tiny droplets by regulated nozzle. The nozzle is there to regulate the droplet size. Then the particles are embedded by the droplets which create over time a protecting shell. The nozzle atomizing the matrix can be applied either at the bottom, that is bottom spray process, or when if you are using the top spray, then that time this process is called as top spray process of the fluidized particle. For the bottom spray, the use of Worcester column, that is a column partition chamber inside a fluidized chamber, that is force the particle to come close to the nozzle so that they will receive the equal amount of coating material here. But since it does slow down the process, much industrial work in the bottom spray process without the Worcester column. As an intermediary solution, you can say the spouted bed system by devices at the bottom to guide the fluidizing gas stream, and a spatial geometry of the process chamber, the particles are forced to come close to the atomization nozzle. And in case of top spray process, as you can see there in the picture above, the particles also are suspended in a gas stream, but the shape of the vessel is designed for an optimal circulation of all particles to come and as close as possible to the nozzle air volume, and air volume here is adjusted to have the center of the particle stream very close to the nasal, and in such a fashion you will get the very wonderful particle which is having sphericity and which comes under the in a range of your desired particle size what you are expected from. Next one is your extrusion. So this method basically was first patented in the year of 1957. The advantage related with the extrusion technique that it completely surrounds the core material with the wall material. The process involves forcing a core material dispersed in a molten carbohydrate mass through a series of dyes into a bath of dehydrating liquid. When contact with the liquid is made, the carbohydrate case hardens to entrap the core material. The extruded filaments are separated from the liquid bath, dried using an anti-caking agent such as calcium tripolyphosphate and sized. So this process is particularly useful for heat labile substances. So this thing it is very crucial, which will not to what we can say not to forget these kind of substances which will be applicable for the extrusion, such as flavors, vitamin C and some colors. So liquids are encapsulated using a rotating extrusion head containing concentric nozzle. So this process is very excellent for forming the particle in a range of 400 to 2000 micrometer in diameter. Since the drops are formed by the breakup of liquid jet, the process is only suitable for the liquid or slurry. So not to forget this step as well. So we'll have to keep in mind that breakup of the liquid jet, the process is only suitable for the liquid or slurry, and a high production rate can be achieved, that is up to 22.5 kg of microcapsules can be produced per nozzle per hour per head. So this is the significance of this process here to formulate your microencapsulation, and the head containing 16 nozzle are available to operate the stream of your solution. So this is your single emulsion technique. It is very beautiful pictures you see there in the slide, that the microparticulate carriers of natural polymers are prepared using the single emulsion technique. The natural polymers are dissolved or dispersed in the aqueous medium, followed by the dispersion in a non-aqueous medium such as oil. Next, that is cross-linking of the dispersed globule is carried out by means of HIT or the chemical cross-linker. The chemical cross-linking agent used are you may use your glutaraldehyde, formaldehyde, then diacid chloride, etc. So these cross-linking process form the small discrete particle which are then subjected to the centrifugation, washing and separation. So Biomi investigated emulsion cross-linking technique using mineral oil or vegetable oil as the oil phase and the drug solution as the aqueous phase in a simple widely used method for the preparation of your NaCIDs. Okay, so cross-linking can be achieved by the chemical agent or heat, you can say. Not only this, but also the viscosity of oil phase, concentration of cross-linking agent, duration of cross-linking, etc. are the different parameters that affect the release rate and entrapment efficiency. So gelatin a microsphere of ketorolac, it is there in your literature of tromethafine for the intranasal system delivery were developed using this technique, that is your emulsification cross-linking technique. So the drug was dispersed in the polymer gelatin and formulated into a WO emulsion with liquid paraffin using glutaraldehyde as a cross-linking agent. This is your double emulsion technique, wherein the preparation of microspheres involve the formation of double or multiple emulsion of water and oil. So this method can be used with both natural and synthetic polymers. The aqueous drug solution is dispersed in a lipophilic organic continuous phase. This continuous phase generally consists of polymer solution that eventually encapsulates of the drug content in a dispersed aqueous phase. So the primary emulsion is subjected then to homogenization or sonication before addition to the aqueous solution, resulting in the formation of double emulsion. So the emulsion is then subjected to the solvent removal either by solvent evaporation or by solvent extraction method. A new oral control release drug delivery system for the endomethacin was developed with two polymer using this technique. Okay, so that is multiple emulsion emulsification technique, or you can say double emulsion technique. So the powder drug was dispersed in a MC solution which was emulsified with EC solution, that is ethyl cellulose. The primary emulsion thus formed was re-emulsified in the aqueous medium. During this phase, the discrete microspheres were formed under the optimized condition. Then in vitro drug release followed by the first order diffusion control dissolution was shown. More than 85% of the drug was released over the 6 hour at pH 6.2 for all dissolution batch. So this is one of the best you can say the case study I have cited here while learning much more about the double emulsion technique. Okay, so this is your double emulsion technique. Then when we talk regarding the emulsion cross-linking technique, then microcapsule formation by this technique involve the dispersion of aqueous solution of the polymer which containing the core material in an immiscible organic solvent, that is your suspension medium or dispersion medium, you can say, in the form of small droplet. So the suspension medium contain a suitable stabilizer to maintain the individuality of the droplet or microcapsule. So the droplets are subsequently hardened by the covalent cross-linking and are directly converted to the corresponding microcapsule. So the cross-linking process is accomplished either thermally at temperature greater than 500 degrees Celsius even, or by the use of your cross-linking agent as your formaldehyde, terphthalonyl chloride, etc. So emulsion cross-linking is a versatile method that can be adopted for the microencapsulation of soluble, insoluble, liquid or solids material and for the production of both micro and nano capsule. This is your again a one supercritical fluid extraction process, that is SAS method, you can say. A supercritical fluid is used as an anti-solvent here that causes the precipitation of dissolved substrate from a liquid solvent. So this approach is called as SAS, that is supercritical fluid anti-solvent, or you can say that SAS is also called as GAS, that is gas anti-solvent method. Okay, so which results in a pronounced volume expansion compared to the RAS, that is RESS, leading to the supersaturation and then precipitation of the solutes. The SAS is possible only if the liquid solvent is completely miscible with the supercritical fluid and if the solute is insoluble in this mixture. For this reason, that SAS is not applicable to the precipitation of water soluble compounds because of the very low solubility of water in SCCO2, that is supercritical carbon dioxide, at appropriate process condition. So this technique and variations thereof have led to the formation of your submicron particle size. Pan coating actually, this is a very oldest industrial procedure for forming small coated particles or tablets. The particles are tumbled in a pan or other device while the coating material is applied slowly. So solid particles greater than 600 micron in size are generally considered essential for the effective coating. Medicaments are usually coated onto the various spherical substrates such as non-peril sugar seeds and then coated with the protective layer of the various polymers. So if you could able to see there in the diagram, it depicts that the it is method it is widely used for the formulation of your microcapsule. So the particle are tumbled in a pan or other device while the coating material is applied slowly. So fine spherical sugar pellets, that is non-peril seeds, 12 to 40 mesh we have to use here, were replaced in rotating 36-inch coating pan. So syrup was poured over the pellet to wet them evenly, and when tacky finally divided drug partial were sprinkled onto them. The pellets were then dried using the warm air, and the process was repeated 3 times. A final coating of the tar was applied using the syrup. The medicated pellet produced were screened through a 12 mesh sieve, and the 3 part of the quarter of the batch obtained was coated with the mixture of GMS, that is glyceryl monostearate. Basically this is a lipid, and white beeswax, and carbon tetrachloride, that is CCl4 at 70 degrees Celsius. So sufficient coating were applied to the rotating pellets and dried until the 10% coating was achieved, whereupon the 1/3 of the batch was removed. Up to 15 to 20% total coating was achieved. It will be applied to each half of the remaining pellets. So the 4 types of the pellet form then mixed thoroughly prior to packing at appropriate dosage into outer hard gelatin capsule shell to yield a sustained release form of sympathomimetic agent. Okay, example I have cited here. The pan coated rounded granules containing nitroglycerin, which is poor candidate for the sustained release formulation because of its extensive metabolism by the first pass effect. So with various cellulose derivatives such as MC, EC, that is methyl cellulose, ethyl cellulose, or CAP, using the beeswax or castor oil as a plasticizer. Next one is your spray drying. In modern spray dryer, the viscosity of the solutions to be sprayed can be as high as 3000 MPa. Okay, so spray drying and spray congealing, this is the dispersing the core material in a liquefied coating substances and spraying. So that is effective by rapid evaporation of a solvent in which the coating material is dissolved. So these are the different equipment component of standard spray dryer, or you can say the congealing, that is cooling, include an air heater, atomizer, main spray chamber, blower or fan, cyclone, and product collector. So we'll have to optimize the spray drying by means of spray drying to spray ratio, as well as spray congealing to spray ratio. So spray drying to spray ratio is nothing but your aqueous solution divided by hot air, and spray congealing to spray is your hot melt upon the cold air. So if you could able to see there in the diagram, so this diagram serves as a microencapsulation technique when an active material is dissolved or suspended in a melt or polymer solution and becomes trapped in the dried particle. So the main advantage is the ability to handle the labile material because of the short contact time in the dryer. In addition, the operation is economical. In modern spray dryer, the viscosity of the solution to be sprayed can be as high as your 300 millipascal. So encapsulation of the insoluble magnetite nanoparticle within the shell of the spray dried particles can be formulated here. So the spray congealing can be accomplished with spray drying equipment when the protective coating is applied as melt. Core material is dispersed in a coating material. I have already told you rather than the coating solution, and the coating solidification, that is microencapsulation, it will be your final step, where accomplished by spraying the hot mixtures into the cool air stream. The airflow pattern, which is based on the three different mode of contact: co-current, counter current, and mixed flow. So next one is your vibrational nozzle. Actually this process works very well for generating droplets between 100 to 5000 micrometer. So units are deployed in industries and research, mostly with the capacities of 1 to 10,000 kg per hour at working temperature of 20 to 150 degrees Celsius. So nozzle heads are available from 1 up to the several hundred thousand are available. So if you could able to see there in the diagram, the core shell encapsulation or microgranulation, that is matrix encapsulation, can be done using laminar flow through a nozzle and an additional vibration of the nozzle or the liquid. Okay, so any liquid with limited viscosity, that is 0 to 10,000 millipascal, have been shown to work. Okay, and it can be in the form of solution, emulsion, suspension, also melts, even etc. So solidification can be done according to the gelation system used with an internal gelation, example your sol gel processing or the melt, or you can say the external event, that is additional binder system when you are supposed to use the slurry. It is the example of your additional binder system. Okay, so the process works very well for generating the droplets between the applications, as the size of droplet depends on the size of orifice and vibration speed of the nozzle. Okay, so it is directly shown in the figure that one important method of the microencapsulation really is layer by layer deposition can be occur. Then polyelectrolyte multilayers are prepared by sequentially immersing a substrate in positive and negatively charged polyelectrode solution in a cyclic procedure. So the core shell particles with tailored size and properties are prepared using the colloidal particles as the core material, so which serves as the template onto which the multi-layers are fabricated. Okay, so hollow capsule of organic, inorganic, or hybrid particles can be obtained by dissolving the core material. So this technique is both versatile and simple, you can say, with the multiplayer film thickness being controlled precisely by varying the speed of your you can say the nozzle and layer which is deposited. Okay, so here is the very simple technique to formulate your microcapsule. So this is very modern technology to form microcapsule. Next method is your ionotropic gelation method, which has performed its role better by means of your physicochemical mechanism. So chemical reaction between the sodium alginate and calcium chloride or other counter ion solutions such as barium chloride has takes place here. So one example I have cited here, that verapamyl hydrochloride causes the gastric irritation on sudden release. So it is usually administered as conventional tablet containing 40 to 120 milligram 3 times a day. So due to its ready solubility in water and shorter half-life, so microparticulate system of verapamyl hydrochloride for the longer release delivery system. So not only this but also this ionic gelation technique may be defined as your physicochemical process of microdroplet hardening by the chelation of polyelectrolyte with polyvalent ion, such as chelation result in cross-linking the polyelectrolyte molecules. So while forming a shell in the form of polymeric gel. So the most widely used system is based on gelation of aqueous sodium alginate, Gilan, or carrageenan solution by the addition of divalent cations such as calcium chloride, barium chloride or potassium chloride, so which induces the cross linking of the polymers and instantaneously forms the discrete solid microparticle. So in this method, the strong spherically shaped, you can say, narrow high yield microparticles are formed, and which was really used as an carriers of many NSAIDs, which is found in the literatures to drug to minimize dose related adverse effect and prolong the drug release potential. Next is your co-observation phase separation method. So this co-observation phase separation method, which was patented first time by B.K. Green and his team member. So there are the three steps are involved there in the co-observation phase separation. Very first method is formation of three immiscible chemical phases, then deposition of coating, then last one is your rigidization of the coating. Okay, so as far as the discussion there in the diagram are concerned, we'll see the next diagram and discuss in which will be discussed in detail. So the schematic representation of the co-observation process, where you could able to see here the four pictures A, B, C, D. That A is nothing but your core material dispersion in the solution of shell polymer. Second, B is your separation of co-observate from solution, and C is your coating of core material by micro droplets of co-observate, and fourth one is your coalescence of the co-observate to form the continuous shell around the core particle. So this is a very beautiful diagram for the complex co-observations, where you are able to see the separation of an aqueous polymeric solutions into the two miscible liquid phases, that is your dense co-observate phase and the dilute equilibrium phase. So the dense co-observate phase wraps as a uniform layer around the suspended core material, and complex co-observation can result spontaneously upon the mixing of oppositely charged polyelectrolyte into the aqueous medium. So the charges must be large enough to induce the interaction, but not too large to cause the precipitation. Okay, so this thing which we'll have to keep in our mind, that precipitation should not be caused. Okay, so complex co-observation parameters are the pH, ionic strength, the temperature, molecular weight and concentration. So these are the crucial four parameter by which the microencapsulations can be controlled, and which will be form the microcapsule which will be formed, it will be of desired quality. So these methods can occurs with the neutralization of two oppositely charged polymers. The core material such as an oily phase is dispersed in an aqueous solution of the two polymers. A change is made in the aqueous phase, that is pH, to induce the formation of polymer rich phase that becomes the wall material. So the co-observate are usually stabilized here by means of thermal treatment, cross linking or the desolvation techniques. Okay, so this is all about the complex co-observation technique. So solvent evaporation, which is a chemical process. In this case, in which the core material is dispersed in the polymer solution, polymer shrinks around the core. In the case in which the core material is dissolved in the coating polymer solution, a matrix type microcapsule is formed. So the core material may be either your water soluble or water insoluble material. So variety of film forming polymers can also be used as an coating material. Okay, so example is your evaluation of sucrose ester as alternative surfactants in the microencapsulation of protein by solvent evaporation method. Okay, so the solvent evaporation method is also called as extraction method too. So if you could able to see there in the diagram, which is depicted by means of your three steps of mechanism. First step is your formation of solution or dispersion of the drug into an organic polymer phase. Step 2 It is your emulsification of the polymer phase into an aqueous phase containing a suitable stabilizer, thus forming a OW type of emulsion. And third step, it will be a final stage, wherein the removal of the organic solvents from the dispersed phase by the extraction or the evaporation was takes place, which lead for the polymer precipitation and eventually the formation of the micro spheres. Okay, so not only this, but also here the polymer is dissolved in the water immiscible organic volatile solvents such as DCM, that is dichloromethane or chloroform you can use, into which the core material is dissolved or dispersed. The resulting solution is added dropwise to a stirring aqueous solution with a suitable stabilizer such as polyvinyl alcohol or polyvinyl pyrrolidone to form the small polymer droplets containing encapsulated material. The hard the what you can say the process, the hardening process rather, of the microcapsule is accomplished by the removal of the solvent from the polymer droplets, either by solvent evaporation, that is by heat, or you can say the reduced pressure, or by solvent extraction, that is with the third liquid that is a precipitant for the polymer and miscible with both water and solvent. So solvent extraction produces microcapsule with higher porosities than those obtained by the solvent evaporation. So solvent evaporation or extraction process is suitable for the preparation of drug loaded microcapsule based on biodegradable polyesters such as polylactides, then polyhydroxybutyrate, then polylactidaso, or you can say the glycolide even. Okay, so this is very simple depiction there in the figure. Next one is your polymerization. So the polymerization method, which having the two part, that is the interfacial polymer and in situ polymerization technique. So interfacial polymerization method, the two reactant in a polycondensation meet an interface and react rapidly. Okay, and where in case of in situ polymerization, the process wherein the direct polymerization of single monomer is carried out on the particle surface. So example is your cellulose fiber are encapsulated in polyethylene while immersed in a dry toluene. Usual deposition rates are about 0.5 micrometer per minute. So coating thickness ranges between 0.2 to 75 micrometer. And third is your matrix polymerization, wherein the number of core material is gonna use here to embedded into the polymeric matrix during the formation of particles. So prepare microcapsule containing the protein solution by incorporating the protein in the aqueous diamine phase. So National Lead Corporation utilizing the polymerization technique here. So if you could able to see there in the diagram, this polymerization mechanism it is depicted. So monodisperse microgels in the micron or submicron size range are possible. So precipitation polymerization starts from a homogeneous monomer solution in which the synthesized polymer is insoluble. The particle size of the resulting microspheres depends on the polymerization condition, including the monomer or co-monomer composition and the amount of initiator and the total monomer concentration. So you can say that in emulsion polymerization technique, the monomer alkyl acrylates, that is added dropwise to the stirred aqueous polymerization medium containing the material to be encapsulated, that is core material, and a suitable emulsifier. So the polymerization begins and initially produced polymer molecule precipitate in the aqueous medium to form the primary nuclei. As the polymerization proceeds, these nuclei grow gradually and simultaneously entrap the core material to form the final microcapsule. Generally, lipophilic materials, that is insoluble or scarcely soluble in water, you can say, are more suitable for the encapsulation by this technique. So Emulsion polymerization differs from the suspension polymerization due to the presence of an initiator in the aqueous phase, which later diffuses to the surface of the micelles. Yeah, obviously this is your application slide where you are able to see that I have already told you as far as my introduction is concerned for this presentation, that apart from the pharmaceutical area, the microcapsule it has been formulated for the in the various facets of the area or the arena, you can say. So some marketed preparations are there in the uh, uh, market are available. So that is your medicine very first, then veterinary, then household and personal care, then biotech area, pharmaceutical area, chemical industry, agriculture, waste treatment, in textile industry, photography, graphics and printing, electronics, feed, food and medicine. So there are the n number of applications of this microencapsulation techniques are really beneficial for the each and every facets of the arena. Okay, so we're going to discuss it one by one. So the agriculture application, so wherein the microencapsulation by which one can reduce the insect population by disrupting their mating process, which protect the pheromone from oxidation and light during the storage and release. It also perform its role as a better catalyst for the in the catalysis reaction. So safe handling, easy recovery, reuse and disposal at an acceptable economical cost. So metal species such as palladium 2 acetate and osmium tetroxide have been encapsulated in the polyurea micro encapsules and used successfully as recoverable and reusable catalyst without significant leaching and loss of activity. Then food industry, so in adding the ingredients to food product to improve the nutritional value can compromise their taste, color, texture and obviously aroma. So sometimes then slowly degraded and lost their activity or become hazardous by oxidation reaction. Ingredients can also react with the component present in the food system, which may limit bioavailability. Pharmaceutical application, which is really beneficial to us to gain much more knowledge regarding the microencapsulation technique. So potential application of these drug delivery systems are replacement of therapeutic agent which are not taken orally today, like insulin, then gene therapy, and in use of vaccines for the treating AIDS, tumors, cancer and diabetes, etc. So the delivery of the corrective gene sequences in the form of plasmid DNA could provide the convenient therapy for a number of genetic diseases such as cystic fibrosis or hemophilia. Lupin has already launched in the market the word first cephalaxin, that is Cef-ER, and cefadroxil, that is Odoxil OD antibiotics tablets for the treatment of bacterial infection. Okay, so where you can survey the market trend, okay, and get the maximum collection of your examples. So aspirin control release version, that is Zor Preen CR tablet are used for the relieving the arthritis symptoms. Quinidine gluconate CR tablet are used for the treatment and prevention of abnormal heart rhythm. Niaspan CR tablet is used for improving cholesterol level and thus reducing the risk for the heart attack. Glucotrol, glipizide, SR is the anti-diabetic medicine used to control the high blood pressure. Some of the applications of microencapsulation can be described in detail as given as below. So prolonged release dosage form for the preparation, we can use this process. we can able to prepare the intracranial dosage form selectively absorb in the intestine rather than the stomach. Then it can be used to mask the taste of bitter drugs, then to reduce the gastric irritation. So by looking towards this trouble or the challenges, one can go for the microencapsulation technique and get the benefit and serve the society for the good health. Next is your which is used to aid in the addition of oily medicines to tableted dosage form to overcome the problem inherent in producing the tablets from the tachygranulation. So this was accomplished through the improved flow properties. Example, the non-flowable multi-component solid mixture of niacin, riboflavin and thiamine hydrochloride and iron phosphate may be encapsulated and made directly into the tablets. Then to protect the drugs from the environmental hazards such as humidity, light, oxygen or heat. Example, vitamin A and vitamin K, that is menadione. So which has been shown to be protected from the moisture and oxygen through microencapsulation process. So not only this, but the other applications are the separation of incompatible substances. Example, pharmaceutical eutectic mixtures. Okay, so this is a very challenging area, you can say, where the encapsulation find its own way to overcome this kind of problem related with the eutectic mixture. So the stability enhancement of incompatible aspirin chlorpheniramine maleic mixtures was accomplished by microencapsulating both of them before mixing. Then microencapsulation can be used to decrease the volatility. The hygroscopic properties of many core material may be reduced by microencapsulation. Next is your in the fabrication of multi-layer tablet formulation for the controlled release of medicament contained in medical layer of the tableted particles. Then microencapsulation has been used to decrease the potential danger of handling of toxic or noxious substances such as fumigants, herbicides, insecticides and pesticides. So this is all about your applications of microencapsulations. I haven't sum up the some factors which might have influenced the encapsulation efficiency, so I wanted to cite that factors here. Basically the encapsulation efficiency of the microparticles or microcapsule as well as the microsphere is affected by the various parameters. So we'll see it. Okay, so wherein I will going to just only enlisted that few factors. Okay, so while learning you can or rather you would able to learn much more about that factor, so you will not going to be skip that part as well. So first is your for the as far as low efficiency encapsulation efficiency are there, then the parameters which can be affect the encapsulations are high solubility of the polymer in the organic solvent, so we have to think about this parameter. Then low solubility of the organic solvent in the water even then low concentration of polymer and high dp and cp ratio, slow solvent removal rate. So when we think about this and if you are using this parameter for the formulation, then this is responsible for the slow solidification of the microparticle, wherein this slow solidification of the microparticles which cause the low encapsulation efficiency. So meanwhile for the formulation of the microencapsulation one should think wisely for the selection of different core material as well as the coating material too. Okay, and it is very clear that for the high encapsulation efficiency we are always looking forward for the low solubility of the polymer in the organic solvent, wherein high solubility of the organic solvent in the water. Okay, so not only this, but also the high concentration of polymer also we are looking forward, and we are also going to be obviously maintain the dp to cp ratio as low as possible, so which lead for the fast solvent removal rate, okay, which could lead for the fast solidification of the particles, and eventually you will get the high encapsulation efficiency. So the factors what where we have to think upon are viscosity of your dispersed phase, then volume fraction of the both dispersed to continuous phase, then drug quantity in the dispersed phase, then surfactant concentration, operating parameters, agitation rate per time, temperature, pressure, geometry of agitator and reactor. So these are the crucial factor when one can really work upon the microencapsulation technique. So it is not very easy to follow the any research paper, so bring that methods into our execution and go for the formulation. So it is very easy actually, but to develop and inculcate these strategy or the research mind or the ideas, innovative ideas, so one has to think about the these kind of the parameters. So which factors which influence and which factors which really shows its impact as far as the hurdles for the encapsulation efficiency is concerned, we should learn much more about it. Okay, so not only these, we had emphases here, the materials which has been used for the microencapsulation, factors, different types of method, different types of application, but one factor, one area where I haven't touched upon much more about the points, that is your evaluation parameter. So I'll just going to discuss the enlisted rather the different types of the evaluation parameter where you could able to capture your quality of your microencapsulation. Okay, so the as far as your microencapsulations are concerned, you must go for the particle shape and size determination. So most commonly methods used are light microscopy, scanning electron microscopy, and your transmission electron microscopy. Okay, so apart from that, you can use the confocal laser scanning microscopy, which is also available in a SPPU. Okay, so it is also referred to as an non-destructive visualization technique. Okay, so by which one can give the result not only about the structure as well as the surface, but also it reveals the about inside particle. Okay, so this is your surface morphology. For your surface morphology, then FTIR, okay, to check the interaction between your polymer and drug system, then your Kaz index, Hasner ratio, bulk density, tap density. Okay, so this is all about your micromeadic study, when at last you will get the microcapsule in the form of amorphous powder. Then you could able to characterize your microcapsule by means of isoelectric point. It is used to measure the electrophoretic mobility of the microsphere, by which the isoelectric point can easily be calculated. Okay, so the mobility is also related with the surface content, charge, ionizable behavior, or you can say the even eye absorption nature of the microcapsule. Okay, the next one is you can determine your drug loading, microencapsulation efficiency, then microencapsulation L. So there are the different types of formulas are available as far as your drug loading is concerned. So drug loading, the formula is your weight of drug divided by weight of microcapsule, wherein microencapsulation efficiency can be determined by means of percent actual drug content divided by percent theoretical drug content into the 100. Okay, and you know that the practical yield can be determined by means of your weight of microcapsule divided by total expected weight of drug and polymer, okay, into the 100. Then contact angle, so you can also determine the contact angle, that is nothing but your angle of contact is really determined as far as your weighting property of microcapsule is concerned. So with the help of this method, we can easily know about the nature of microcapsule in terms of hydrophilicity and hydrophobicity. So this is measured at solid, per air, per water surface by placing a droplet in the circular cell mount above the objective of inverted microscope. Okay, so you can also determine your contact angle. Then in vitro drug release system, it can be carried out in various pH condition like pH 1.2 7.4 using the USP rotating basket, or you can use the paddle apparatus. Okay, so not only these, but also you can go for the XRD studies, that is X-ray diffraction pattern, wherein you are able to see your microencapsulations, where they are available in the crystalline form, or whether they are available in the your amorphous form. Okay, so there are the different types of evaluation parameters are available. Okay, so at last we'll see the conclusion. That is, the microencapsulation techniques offers a variety of opportunities such as protection and masking, reduced resolution rate, facilitation of handling, and spatial targeting of the active ingredient. This approach facilitate the accurate delivery of small quantities of potent drug, reduce drug concentration at sites other than the target organ or tissue, and protection of the labile compounds before and after administration and prior to the appearance at the site of action. So in future, by combining various other approaches, microencapsulation technique will find the vital place in the novel drug delivery system. So thank you very much. In next presentation, we will going to cover our next topic as our revision. Thank you so much.